So there is another Palestinian fighter, thinker, writer that came and fought on the side of the rebels, Muhammad Sidqi. It seems like at that moment this left that was emerging, that is anti-fascist, they haven't yet dealt with colonialism and the reckoning that it should have been.
Yeah. I mean, Moscow, Comintern was asking communist parties in the several countries of the Arab world, they were asking their parties to be Arabized. They called the Arabization of the Communist Party. And this was faced and confronted by some militants, born in Europe, French mainly, or British, or Jewish settlers, that they were confronting this, saying that those are not revolutionary subjects. We cannot give the key of the party to these people, no? And obviously Najati Sidqi, it's the one that gave us more literature about this topic because he wrote his memoirs, and on his memoirs he's facing several chapters of this violence.
Hey everybody, this is Laith Marouf from Free Palestine TV, and we are in Barcelona, part of the Catalan region of the Kingdom of Spain. And before we continue with this report, I ask you to press the subscribe button on whatever social media platform you're watching this on, and to go to our website, freepalestine.video, to donate so we can continue bringing this content. Standing behind me is a monument to the Internationalist Brigades that came to fight against fascism during the quote-unquote Spanish Civil War in Barcelona. And we have with us one of the historians that covered this era, Marc Almodovar. Thank you so much for coming and joining us. Marc is a documentary filmmaker and a historian. He has a very interesting book that people should read, Moros Contra Franco. Okay, the Moorish or Arabs that are against Franco. It covers that era of the involvement of Arabic and Amazigh fighters that came to fight against the fascists. So let's start with this monument. I think you were telling me this was built in 1988.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit hard to understand the concept of it, but what was it that it resembles?
I'm not fully sure about it, but I think it's David on the top with the shield, and behind on the floor it's Goliath. I understand that on the top we have like the International Brigades, and down the fascism, representing the fascism itself.
Well, this location is very weird, to put a monument to such an important moment in the history of Spain. Do you feel like this is kind of how the Spanish state tries to forget or throw away this memory?
It's kind of usual. This is like a popular neighborhood. It's called Al Carmel, and we have like several similar things like this in the outskirts of Barcelona, let's say, or in popular neighborhoods. It's not only the neighborhood itself; it's also that it's in the middle of the road. I mean, it's not even that people come here to pass by and have a look, no. But let's say that, especially in the 80s, this was kind of normal. Actually, back on that time, you could even say that it was like the first things that they were starting to do to recover this memory, you know.
Okay, so let's try to tell our audience, who probably don't know much about this new generation that doesn't read that much, about the this quote-unquote civil war. The struggle. What was it about, and how can we kind of connect it to our times today?
Yeah, if we jump back to the 30s, this was like the struggle happening in, let's say, not only in Europe, it was almost all over the world, especially because colonialism was everywhere. It was this kind of a struggle between left-wing movements, liberal movements, and fascism. So this was like a big debate that was happening all over. It was happening in Spain. So this is what happened. The Spanish Civil War erupted for a fascist movement or like a military movement that was supported by fascist and right-wing movements. and that was confronted by the popular movements in Spain. I mean, there was a republic in Spain, the left-wing Frente Popular won the election, and this was like confronted and was like disputed by the right wing. And this is what happened in Spain, but some people, they say that the Spanish Civil War is like the first chapter of what happened later on, which was the Second World War. No?
Mm-hmm. And how can people understand the relationship between fascism and imperialism?
Well, this is one of the things that we will work with the book. Generally, when we talk about the Spanish Civil War, we have thousands of books, thousands of research, but they were not having this perspective, or there's a lack of perspective of colonialism fight or anti-colonialism fight, no? And this is what we try to put on the table, no? Which is this kind of perspective. For anti-colonialist movements, this was the debate. Actually, the debate in Spain was, I mean, democracy between fascism, or left between right. This is like the debate in Europe, but in the colonialized world, the debate was bigger because there was another topic, which was colonialism itself. When the fascism erupted in the world, some anti-colonialist movements in the Arab world and in other parts of the world, they thought, okay, this is a new movement, it's nationalistic, it could be interesting to try, it's something new. But then they realized when the Italians moved onto Abyssinia, which is now Ethiopia, and when they went into Libya, and the big disasters in Libya happened, so a lot of anti-colonialists...
Half of the population of Libya was genocided by the fascist Italians.
Yeah, by Mussolini. And when the Italians moved there, anti-colonialist movement, they realized, I mean, this is not what's gonna free us. This is another kind of imperialism, which is even worse than the other. So we need to confront it, no? So this debate started to happen in the anti-colonialist movement, and when the Spanish Civil War happened, you were in the middle of this debate, no?
So why would you think at the time colonized people came to fight the anti-fascists in Spain?
I mean, this is not an easy question to answer because there were many reasons. Each individual could have different reasons for it. But in general, you can say that a lot of anti-colonialists and anti-colonialist fighters, they were inside the ranks of the Communist Party. Back at that time, the Communist Party was really involved in the Spanish Civil War, especially on the project of the International Brigades. And that's why when the Spanish Civil War erupted, some of these militants, some of them had police or jail problems or security problems back in their countries, so they need to move. And one solution for them sometimes was, okay, if I cannot fight fascism in my own land, let's go to Spain because this is another front of the same battle. No? This is what happened to some of them. I mean, it's the case of Ali Abdel Khalek, who was a Palestinian, who was in jail because of the revolution happening in Palestine back at that time, and which is curious, is that he was offered by the British authorities to leave the land of Palestine in order to join the Republicans in Spain. No? He was offered this deal, and he took it and he came here. Then here he died in his first battle. This is another thing of the story, but he was offered this deal. And some of these militants, it's pretty much the same. The Iraqi volunteer Nuri Rufael, it's pretty much the same. Back on that time there was like the coup d'etat by Sidki in Baghdad
against the king.
Against the previous governor, and on this coup they started to repress the left-wing movements. And he found himself that if I stay here, I will end up in jail. So he left to France, and in France, someone offered him, in the Communist Party, offered him the option to come to Spain. No?
So you mentioned right now two people, an Iraqi and a Palestinian that came here.
Abdel Khalek, he died on the battlefield in Extremadura. On the first battle he fought, he was not lucky. He died on the first battle. This has been well reported by by the Polish fighters that were on the same unit like him, which is the Naftali Bodwin unit, and he died on the battlefield. There's some discussion about if he's buried in Albacete. I believe it's really hard to believe that his body was carried from Extremadura to Albacete because it's really far away. But some people believe that he's buried in Albacete, and actually there's a Palestinian who put a plaque in Albacete. I'm not fully sure he's there, but yeah, he died in Spain.
So there's always a lot of talk about Arabs and Amazigh that were brought in by the Spanish regime by force to fight on the side of the fascists, but it's seldom talked about. This the fact that there was, revolutionary Arab and Amazigh people that fought on the other side. So why do you think this is so, forgotten, or at least not given the attention that it should?
Well, first of all, it's not given proper attention the colonial perspective of the Spanish Civil War. The coup d'etat, the attempt coup d'etat that started the Spanish Civil War was mainly led by military that they based their career on the colonial fights. So they were colonial, or Spanish colonial high-ranked officers. They are the ones who started this Spanish Civil War, no? This is the first point. The second point is that the rebels against the Spanish Republic, they lack military force. The majority of the forces, they were with the Republicans, the human people that they were fighting. So how they solved it, from one side it's the help of the Germans and the Italians and everything, but mainly because they recruited thousands of people in the Rif. Then you can discuss if they were if they were cheated, if they were not knowing what was going on here. This is a long discussion to have to think about it. But what it's for sure is that if we don't consider the Spanish Civil War and what happened here with this colonial perspective, that okay, we are lacking people, let's take it from our colonial lands, and it is going to be for sure that we are missing the perspective. Also, the point of view of this military, that they did the war here on the Spanish soil. Their experience on war was based on colonial war. So we cannot miss this perspective on the thing.
So there is another Palestinian fighter, thinker, writer that came and fought on the side of the rebels, Muhammad Sidqi, and he had a lot of points when he was, after he left, talking about the racism that he faced within supposedly this revolutionary left. And you mentioned the fact that there was people coming from a lot of places around the world, many of them being colonies like the United States, like Canada, and so it seems like I don't know, but you can tell me what you think. It seems like at that moment they haven't yet, this left that was emerging, that is anti-fascist, they haven't yet dealt with colonialism and the reckoning that it should have been.
Yeah, that's for sure. Our book, it's not only focusing on the Spanish Civil War, they are focusing also on how the left-wing movements, especially communist movements, they were dealing with this situation, especially in the 20s and the 30s, and there's a big problem of it. Moscow, Cominter was asking the communist parties in Algeria, in Palestine, in the several countries of the Arab world, they were asking their parties to be Arabized. They called the Arabization of the Communist Party. And this was faced and confronted by some militants, born in Europe, French mainly, or British, or Jewish settlers, that they were confronting this, saying that those are not revolutionary subjects. We cannot give the key of the party to these people, no? In some cases, no. In some cases, these Europeans, they say no. We should go for it. But they face a lot of these troubles. And these troubles, when the Spanish Civil War erupted, we see it here happening as well, and obviously Najati said it's the one that gave us more literature about this topic, because he wrote his memoirs, and on his memoirs he's facing several chapters of this violence, no, of this racist violence, which is showing us the problem of the European left regarding the topic of racism and colonialism and all these topics. I mean, it's clear the Spanish Civil War was another chapter on this conflictual story, no?
So, my last question, and I think it's going to be actually at the heart of the thing, because you just mentioned the Jewish fighters that were here, that were against the inclusion of Arabic communists into this battle. We know that at least 6,000 Jewish fighters came and joined the anti-fascist battle in that time. But today we live in a time where it's been 100 years and not one Jewish person carried arms against the Jewish fascists, the Zionists, neither inside Palestine, Lebanon, or anywhere, or even in the West, where a lot of them live. So this contradiction between a Jewish person thinking that they should or have the duty to sacrifice to liberate Spain from fascism, and now where there's not one Jew on this planet that feels that they have the duty to sacrifice to stop the killing in their name and the killing in the name of their religion, or to help to liberate the victims of Jewish fascism or Jewish supremacy, aka Zionism. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's far more complex than this, because I believe there are Jews that they are confronting the situation,
but not carrying arms. Not one.
Well, not carrying arms. Probably not carrying arms. But if we go back to this time, the majority of the Jewish people that they came here during the Spanish Civil War, and this I think it is interesting part if we're talking about history, is that majority of them, they were members of the Communist Party. The Communist Party since the 1924 was clearly and crystalline anti-Zionist. He was asking the communists all over the world to fight Zionism. Actually, the only Jewish unit that was in the International Brigades was Naftali Wodwin, was created and requested under the flag of Naye Press, which was a journal edited in Paris, which was anti-Zionist movement. So nowadays, when we find, and this was happening in Spain and happened obviously in the state of Israel, when they were using these Jewish fighters to portray something really different, this is a lie. This is actually a lie. Actually, we know that till the 60s, all these Jewish communists that they came back to Palestine, they were totally ignored by the Zionists. They were actually confronted by the Zionists to say, what the hell did you have done in Spain? I mean, your fight was here to create the Eretz Israel, to fight for Israel and all these kind of things. And they were confronted by this. But in the 60s, end of the 50s, 60s, when they had the Eichmann trial, they realized that the Jews realized that the Zionists, they realized they needed to create like a narrative of resistance or the fight against the fascism, and they used the Spanish Civil War to create this narrative that not some Jews they fought against fascism, and they recreated the resistance of the ghetto in Varsovia, in Warsaw. And this is what they used to create a narrative of Jewish fighting against Zionism, against fascism, and to create the idea that Israel was an anti-fascist in somehow state, no?
Yeah.
But if you go back to the 30s and you talk to these militants, they were on a political party that for more than at least 12 years was strictly anti-Zionist. And they were, as a militants, they were creating activities and they were asking for the end of Jewish migration, even if they themselves, they were Jewish migrants, and they were Jewish settlers, some of them. But the Communist Party, they were part of, they were fighting against it. The issue is that when the Arab Revolution erupted, the degree of involvement of the political party they were part of it, the degree of involvement, which was even including some meetings with Mufti of Jerusalem, was something that was shocking a lot of them. So a lot of them, instead of fighting against their political party in Palestine, they decided, okay, I will avoid this fight and I will go to Spain and fight the fascism in Spain. And when they arrived here, they were not. I haven't found a single paper saying they were coming from Israel or Eretz Israel or whatever. They were Palestinians, and they were labeled as Palestinians, and they've been buried in the middle of the Ebro. There's a plaque that was built back at that time from a Jewish shelter, a Jewish migrant that came here, was involved in the Spanish Civil War. He died in Gandesa, and he was buried as a Palestinian, not as something else. No. So I think this situation has been like reshaped by the Israeli authorities, by the Israel historical frame set, and this is something we need to confront and to say this is not true. This is not what happened back at that time. No. So I think that this is a story. I mean, we should think about these kind of things because things are more complex. Our book is trying to realize that it's far more complex. You're saying about, because when we started this book, there started to be some articles saying 1,000 Arabs. This issue about the numbers. No, 1,000 Arabs came to fight fascism in Spain. Some they were saying 1,000 Muslims. And everything was not. It's far more complex because we don't know really exactly how much of them. The numbers are really problematic because they are inside a paperwork that was not really clear, and these names are inside French, British national. They are under these flags of British or French nationals, and at the same time, when we start to check who are those names, not of them are Arabs or Amazighs or, I mean, Nuri Rafael, he was Chaldean. I mean, under which flag we should label him Arab? Yeah, probably, but it's not exactly the same. Some of them, they were Armenian, and some of them, they were European settlers or French, Spanish citizens that they were living in the north of Africa. Some of them are under these numbers, no? So it's far more problematic, no? So that's why under our research, we didn't want to focus on this type of labeling numbers or thing, but to try to figure out what was happening between the left and the colonial or anti-colonial struggle, which was the relation between them, and how this shaped the Spanish Civil War, and how we can check the Spanish Civil War from another perspective. No?
Well, you know, you're more forgiving than I am, but as a person who is Palestinian, I cannot forgive the Jewish left up until now that has failed its duties to fight fascism within its own circles. We have a lot of Jews that talk about Zionism to us, to the rest of the people, but don't preach inside their own community, and they are not fighting to create a revolution inside the synagogue, which is their duty, nobody else's duty to do. But it is very interesting. People should be reading Marc Almodovar and Andrew Rose's book, Moros Contra Franco. It's full of information that has been hidden from sight for a long time. Marc, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Inshallah, we'll see you soon. You're still watching Free Palestine TV. I ask you one more time to press the subscribe button on whatever social media platform you're watching this on, and to go to our website, freepalestine.video, to donate so we can continue bringing you this content. Until we see you next time, we wish you a world free of imperialism, fascism, Zionism, and colonialism.